Now let's add a function to this program. Functions allow us to organize our tasks in the program into logical groups. So I'll use the function keyword to create a new function. This one I'm going to call hello, because I'm going to move that display statement that's in the main currently into this new function. The next thing I'll do is to take the display statement and put it in the function block. And now I'm going to need to call this function from the main. So again, this program does exactly the same thing as it did before, but now we've isolated that display code into its own function. When we compile and run the program, we'll see Hello World listed there. Now let's add on to this by changing the display of the words Hello World to instead display the value of a variable. So we're going to, instead of displaying the hard-coded Hello World here, we'll put in a variable. We'll call it message1, and we're going to have to now define that local variable, and we'll define it as a varchar. There's more information on data types in the data type video. The next thing we'll do is add the argument to the function so that we can receive a value of message1 when this function is called. Next, when we call the function, we're going to have to pass a value, and we're going to pass a varchar defined variable called message, and we're going to go ahead and give it a value of Hello Great World. Now when we call that hello function, we'll be passing the words Hello Great World, and we should see that in our output. And there it is. Now let's continue by looking at adding two arguments, passing two arguments when we call the hello function instead of just one. So we're adding another variable called num, so we're going to have to define it, and here we'll define it as an integer type. And we'll go ahead and give it a value. And you'll note that when we call the function, we just use a comma to pass the arguments. And now in our receiving function, hello, we're going to need a variable to receive that information. And so we'll go ahead and copy and paste the type definition, but we'll call this one num1. And then we're just going to display message1 and use the double pipe concatenating operator to concatenate a space and then our num1 value. Now when we compile and run the program, we'll see that we get the Hello Great World, the space, and the number 5. Now we could also change the value and hard code a number. So we can pass from a variable from a function, either the variable or the actual literal value. And since this is passing in a number, num1 will be able to interpret that. So now when we run it, we'll see Hello Great World space 6. Now let's talk about returning a value from a function. Let's first change this back to the variable num. And then we'll add a returning clause, and we're going to return back to this function the variable num. So we're going to pass a value to the function and return back a value. Now a returning variable could be a different variable, but here we'll just use num so that we can do some processing in the hello function. So in the hello function now we need to put the keyword return, and we're going to return the value of num1. Now to make it more interesting, let's display num1 as it is passed to the function, and then let's go ahead and increment num1 by 1. So we'll do num equals num1 plus 1 and return num1, and then in the main where we've called this function, let's go ahead and display the value of num as it is returned. So again, we're calling a function, passing the value, displaying the value, doing a addition on the value, and then returning that back and displaying it. So you can see there's hello great world, space 5, which is our first display statement in the hello function, and then the number 6 on the next line is the returned value that is then displayed back in the main.